Hello and welcome to Brands Hatch as we get set for rounds 5 and 6 of TCR UK. And as the championship continues to grow, we welcome a couple of new drivers onto the grid this weekend. But Dan Lloyd remains to be the driver to beat, as he proved once again at Knock Hill last time out.
The red lights go on. When they go out, we are racing for round number 3 of the TCR UK Championship. They go out now, and the cars launch over the hill down towards turn 1. Dan Lloyd makes a good start, and Ollie Taylor, as predicted, with the dry side of the road, gets into second place ahead of Aidan Moffat. So Lloyd leads into the hairpin, Taylor second, Moffat there in third place, and look at Lewis Kent. Darren Wilson's up in the gravel. Oh, Darren Wilson, he got loose turning into Clark's there. You can only assume that was a cold tyre issue. Ollie Taylor loses it through the left-hander. He's all over the grass. Moffat will go through. Beckman will go through. And right on cue, that was the mistake that Aidan Moffat was looking for. And well and truly stuck in the gravel is Lewis Kent. And this could be a safety car. Finley Crocker's off now as well. Completely out of control, Finley Crocker. Well, 10 out of 10 for style. Aidan Moffat, I'm seeing on the timing screen, is dropping down the order as well. How can we lost the local hero somewhere out on circuit? There is confirmation. There's Aidan Moffat's car. There's no damage done to it. He's just pulled off the road. Josh Price has got himself up into second place. There's more contact there between Andreas Beckman and Ollie Taylor. And Josh Price, through it all, has come past the pair of them. So Josh Price, remarkably, has come from the very back of the grid into second place. It's a Honda Civic battle for second place, and Josh Price is wide at the hairpin. He's on the dirty side of the road, and Taylor's going to go through. He's going to lean on Price, and he does get second place back. What a race this has been. Ollie Taylor has been up and down the field several times, like the proverbial yo-yo. Oh no, Darren Wilson has collided with Finley Crocker, who is a lap down. So what on earth happened there? Dan Lloyd wins round number 3 of the TCR UK Championship. Ollie Taylor comes home second, and Josh Price will be third. And what a battle those two had. Round number 4 of TCR UK is go! It's a good start by Walkinshaw. Lewis Kent again makes a really good start. He's up alongside Darren Wilson for second place. He's ahead into second place. So it's Walkinshaw from Kent, the top 2. And Lewis already into the back of Walkinshaw, who's sideways. Oh, right in front of the pack. Lewis Kent up the inside of him, but that was very physical indeed. Look at Josh Price going charging around the outside as well. 2 wheels on the grass for Josh Price, but Lewis Kent has the race lead. Walkinshaw second. Wilson just about chopped across in front of Price for third. Price for second, up the inside of Walkinshaw. Look at the cars dancing around under braking, and it will be Josh Price that goes through. And now we turn our attention to the timing screen with interest to see what sort of lap times he can put in. Lewis Kent's season just isn't getting going, really, is it? Right, Dan Lloyd is with Josh Price now. He has caught the race leader. He's gone through. How on earth did he do that? Dan Lloyd has gone through. Well, there we go. That answers my question. No, he hasn't met his match in Josh Price. Dan Lloyd is leading the race, and he got there an awful lot quicker than I thought. Sells the dummy, makes Jessica think he's not going to go for it, and then launches up the inside. Oh, Jessica turns in though. Oh no, and there's contact, and they're both off. Both out wide. Is there damage done to Taylor's car? I think there is. Ollie Taylor, this is big drama as far as one of our championship contenders are concerned. And looking back for third place, Walkinshaw has to defend. Beckman goes to the outside line. Darren Wilson's in there as well, looking for a podium. This could get messy. Beckman outbreaks himself, and Wilson seizes the opportunity. Brilliant stuff from Darren Wilson into 4th position. And this is a very familiar sight indeed. 4 wins from 4 for West Coast Racing, and Dan Lloyd extends his championship lead. Josh Price is second, Sean Walkinshaw third.
The Brands Hatch Indy circuit is short but sweet, affording the drivers challenging corners where accuracy and a certain degree of bravery is required. For the fans, well, it typically provides close racing with bags of overtaking, making it ideal for touring car racing. And we caught up with Lewis Kent to talk us through a flying lap.
Hi guys, it's Lewis Kent here in the I-30 and TCR. I'm going to take you through a lap around Brands Hatch. So coming down here, 5th gear, flat out at the moment. We'll be looking for your braking point. It's about the 2 board, on the brakes, down 1 gear to 4th, turning in nice and early, back on the throttle, picking it up, but then getting that drop in, getting the grip in. Coming up the hill, staying in 4th, on the brakes, down 2 gears, turning in and literally squeezing the throttle on all the way through, letting it run out and then back on the throttle, up 1 into 3rd here, on the brakes again, turning in, little bit of curb, back on the exit, on the throttle, up 1 into 4th, and you have a little bit of a rest here, lifting off, turning back in, flat out through here again, on the brakes, down 1, turning in, squeezing that throttle on nice and gently, trying to just get the car rotate nicely, but back on the throttle, down the straight, up to 5th, and that's a lap. Bit tricky, bit twisty, but you can get it around in a nice time.
Just a few tenths of a second could be the difference between several rows on the grid here at Brands Hatch, as yesterday's qualifying session proved. Once again, Dan Lloyd seizing pole position 3/10 of a second ahead of Ollie Taylor, who himself was only 3/1000ths of a second ahead of Andreas Beckman. Lewis Kent, Jessica Bettman and then Josh Price completed that top 6, and here's what the top 3 had to say after that intense qualifying.
It was great. It was hard work, really hard. I mean, it's always hard work. People say it looks easy, but it's never easy. We got there right at the end. The car wasn't handling like we expected it would. It took a bit of work throughout the session, but yeah, got it together at the end. It is a lot closer here. I think guys are learning the cars a lot quicker and they're getting there now. So I think it is going to be closer, especially around Brands Hatch Indy. It's always close racing. But yeah, I mean, we're doing a great job, both myself and the team. You know, the car wasn't what we expected today, and we worked really well together with my engineer. We made countless changes during the session. We're not just walking it, you know, we are having to work for it, and the guys are doing a really good job.
What was the problem with the car? What can you tell us?
It handled differently from FP2 to qualifying. Whether it was the heat, I don't know. In the FP2, the rear was quite planted. Qualifying, it was quite loose. So we had to make some changes to that to obviously improve it, and got there at the end. So yeah, massive thanks to West Coast Racing, and really happy that my teammates did a good job as well. You know, Andreas is 3rd, just missing out on 2nd, and Jessica did a mega job to get top 5. So as long as I can keep the lead, then I'll hold them off. It's going to be an interesting race tomorrow. It's 30 minutes, you know, it's probably like 37 laps. So I think we're all in a bit the unknown in terms of how the tyres are going to handle. So yeah, I think we're all a bit in the dark there. So it'll be about tyre management mostly.
Pleased with that. It was a good quali. Front row start. Open to be a bit closer to Dan, but that was a really good lap of his there. So yeah, overall very happy. Front row, my best lap. And yeah, car was great. First time out in the new car. Yeah, fantastic.
What is the difference between this, the FK07, compared to the 2 that you had before?
Yeah, so obviously it's just the next model on from the Honda Civic range, Type R. All in all, the car's not too dissimilar. It's the same engine, gearbox, drivetrain, apart from the rear suspension's independent rear suspension instead of just a sort of a rear axle. So the characteristics, the handling characteristics are slightly different to the old cars, more stable. And to be honest, I'm a bit more comfortable in it. And some of the corners here at Brands, where they're sort of quite fast entry, blind corners, off camber, I'm certainly more comfortable in the car, throwing it in at high speeds than what I would have been in the old one. So yeah, a bit of an advantage to me. Race 1, first row, front row. We'll see what we can do. Hopefully get a good start. Let's not count anything out. Got to get the thing off the line as yet. Obviously I haven't done a start in this car yet, so that'll be interesting. And then race 2, yeah, I always love coming through the pack. Dan's behind me. I need to keep him behind me a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, Brands Indy always a little bit of a tricky place to overtake maybe. So just hope for 2 good starts, get everyone through the first corner cleanly, and see how it goes.
It was really a good qualifying. I'm really glad with the 3rd place. It was really good, I think. Yeah, I think the first corner is really hard, and also turn 4 at the fast left corner. It takes quite a bit of confidence, but it's really a fun track, I think. A podium would be really nice, I think. I think we have a really good car, and yeah, I think a podium is my goal for tomorrow. So.
Yeah, some pretty happy drivers there. You heard Andreas at the end. They got some goals for tomorrow, and the goals he's looking for Directly ahead of you right now, Dan Lloyd sitting on pole position, as we saw, as has happened in every single race so far. Dan just about to get into the car right now. In fact, we'll quickly grab him. Dan, before you get your lid on, we spoke to you yesterday about the qualifying. Now today, track conditions ideal for you and a lot of empty space up there.
Yeah, it should be good. Obviously, the main goal is to get to the first corner in front, and then go from there. It's going to be an interesting race. We're doing about 37 laps, which is quite unknown around here, especially for front-wheel drive cars. And this heat as well, so it'll be about managing tyres. So we don't know what to expect. I don't think a lot of others do. So yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, I think tyre management's going to come into it a huge amount. Good luck, Dan, all right? Yeah, mentioning tyre management, actually talking to a lot of the drivers, tyre management is something that every single one of them has spoken about. It's one of these things that it's a 30-minute race, and around here, 37, 38 laps. The first 15 minutes, the first, say, 15, 20 laps around here are going to be a real eye-opener. You might find some cars start to drop off after 15 laps, something like that. Lewis Kent is looking very, very quick out on track, and we know he's got the pace. We saw him do the qualifying lap just there. And let's go and speak to Jessica, because, well, Jessica has finally got everything together on one lap. And if we just glance up to pole position to Dan up there, we have the 3 Golfs, one after the other, first, third and fifth on the grid. Now, Jessica, if we think about how she's done in the last few rounds, she did 8th, a 6th, a 7th and a 6th, so she's getting quicker and quicker and quicker. Jessica, if we just dive in, let me just close the door so we get the camera through. Jessica, pretty good position where you are right now on the grid, and looking ahead of you, it's teammates the whole way.
Yeah, it's very fun when we are West Coast Racing 135, so we try to follow them to the first corner and try to get everyone on the podium. That will be fun.
But of course, you've got some very fast cars to your left-hand side. Ollie Taylor there looking very quick in that brand new Civic for him, and of course Lewis Kent as well. They're both looking very fast.
Yeah, they're both very fast, so it will be a tight race, but I will do everything I can to get up on the podium.
Do you have any particular strategy at the moment, considering tyre degradation?
I think the tires will go off a lot in the end, so I will try to keep the tires as fresh as I can and drive from there.
Good luck to you there, Jessica Backman. She is looking pretty quick, like I say, and for the first time, everything seems to be coming together for Jessica out on track. Now, if we head a little bit further down, I just want to grab hold of 2 drivers that we didn't see last time out in Knock Hill, and they weren't there because they were changing their gearbox over. They had the DSG, and now they've moved over to the sequential. They've got Stuart Lyons to one side, but let's go and see. Let's go and see Stuart, because I can see Carl's already been chatted to right now. Let's just dive in here. Let's get this mesh down if we can do. Oh, we can't. It's tied up. Let's see if I can get it. There we are. Undo all the good work from the team here for you, Stuart. It's hard to do this one-handed. We'll just do it this way. So, Stuart, you had that time of not being here for Knock Hill. You must be chomping at the bit right now.
Yeah, it's been good to be back, and I think Cars feels really good at the minute. It's down to us, really. Me and Carl have tried to work out a few things, and at least we're not giving too much away now, so we've got a chance. But as you know, Saturday's always a nicer day because there's not many incidents. On Sunday, all the serious stuff starts.
And of course, the car performing so much better since you moved away from the DSG. So everything that you did, you think was now right. So missing Knock Hill and having that time to actually get everything sorted out in the car seems to be the right decision.
Oh yeah. I think the DSG gearbox that these cars come with, if you can have an option to come with, they're for endurance racing, really. And you know, for this kind of racing, you've got to have a decent gearbox with a diff in it. So it's looking better.
It's great to see you back, so good luck as well. And another bit of news, actually, is that Stuart has joined up with teams, really, with Carl Swift over there. They've pulled their resources. And actually, what they were telling me before we came live was that they only have one setup, and that is essentially a race setup. So in qualifying yesterday, they were in race trim. They were in their race setup. That's the only way they can actually drive these cars. And because of that, they think they might be able to do quite well because they're already going to be able to deal with that tyre degradation that we were talking about earlier on. It is very, very hot. It's very, very sticky out here. Air temperature pretty warm as well, so the engines aren't going to be performing maybe at their very, very best. If we look around the grid back here, Howard Fuller, he is struggling slightly, very, very determined. Howard was saying to me before we went live that he is extremely determined. He's going to go out there and get, well, everything he can, but he has got slight problems here in that if we have a quick glance at his rear tyres, these are old rear tyres. So he's got old rear tyres on there, going to be struggling for a little tail grip, which is going to cause him problems. But again, who knows what's going to happen as the race goes on. And looking further back, we're going to run over to see Alex Morgan. Now, Alex races in Germany, in TCR Germany. and is here this weekend at Brands Hatch to get more testing from this car. Alex, just saying about the fact that you've been racing in Germany and you're here really to get some more testing in the car right now.
Yes, we've been making a lot of changes to the car recently, so this was a perfect chance to test them out and also to sample TCR UK. So we've learned a lot and hope we'll learn a few more things in the next few races.
Now, you're also telling me that you've had a few issues along the way in the last day and a bit. So do you think you've got those problems ironed out, or is this one of these things we're going to see in the next 5 minutes?
They seem to be a temporary fix, and it's a 50-50 whether they'll work or not. So we'll know pretty soon on in the race whether they do work. Fingers crossed, and we'll see how we get on.
Well, good luck. Thanks very much there, Alex. Now, one of the issues that he does have was a power steering issue. So he was actually having to change gear. He hasn't got flappy panels, actually having to change gear manually, taking one hand off the wheel. And with no power steering, that was really, really causing him problems in the car, getting so hot, particularly in these extra warm, extra moist conditions. So we're going to see. He actually said after qualifying that he was done. He was so exhausted. So it's going to be hit and miss really for Alex. We'll see over the next, I don't know, 5 laps, something like that, to see really how he's coping. And Darrell Wilson, we know he has got pace, but he is struggling with power. He's down on power at the moment, and that's something that he's looking at, hopefully, for the next rounds at Castle Combe. That's it for me, though. What we're going to do is head straight over to our commentator, Andy McEwen, who's going to talk us through the grid, and I think a whole lot more. Andy, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Bryn. Very much looking forward to this one. We've had... It's our third race meeting of the year now for TCR UK, but this has been by far and away the most open, the most competitive. Yes, Dan Lloyd is on pole position again. Yes, he's been quick all weekend, but the chasing pack are getting ever closer with every session that goes by, and we've got Ollie Taylor there on the front row alongside, and I've spoken to Ollie a few times over the course of the weekend. Ollie is well and truly up for this, and I think we're going to be in for a great race between the two of them. Great to see so many people here as well this weekend at Brands Hatch, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the summer sort of festival atmosphere that we've got around the natural amphitheatre of the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, a packed grid that is now starting to be cleared as we get ever closer to race time. And yes, it's going to be a really intriguing 30 minutes. 30 minutes, we've said all season long, is an awfully long time for a touring car race. Touring car races tend to be short, sharp, 20-minute dashes. Adding those extra 10 minutes in adds some real tactics to the mix. You've got to look after your tyres, you've got to look after your brakes, and that is even more important in these really warm conditions. Get a chance here, a last chance to wander up the grid from the back to the front. Stuart Lyons there on the left, Finley Crocker in the Verizon Connect car, and he has been saying that it's been really beneficial for him having Ollie Taylor now also driving the new Shape FK7. They're able to pool resources a little bit. Josh Price has been off the pace a little bit all weekend, but did find some more before qualifying. And then the first of those West Coast cars, Jessica Beckman in 5th place, her best qualifying for the year so far. Lewis Kent up there as well, 4th on the grid, 3rd for Andreas Beckman, and Ollie Taylor and Dan Lloyd making up that front row of the grid. 4th place for Lewis Kent is equaling his best qualifying of the year. He qualified 4th for Silverstone at the start of the season as well. Jessica Beckman with her best qualifying of the year. Dan Lloyd in that very familiar position, pole position. But at Brands Hatch, that is a bit of a double-edged sword. Yes, you're at the front of the grid, but you're not on the preferred line. The outside line is the grippier line for the start of a race, and you also have your sloping downhill from the outside of row 1, so you have gravity on your side. That can play into the hands of Ollie Taylor. Green flag lap then gets underway. The last chance for the drivers to check out the circuit, see what conditions are like, get some heat into the tyres, which sounds ironic since the biggest issue this weekend has been tyres overheating, but nonetheless this is their last sighting lap before the race. Here's the grid then, confirmation of the grid. Dan Lloyd on pole position from Ollie Taylor by about 3/10 on the second. Andreas Beckman heads Lewis Kent on the second row of the grid, and they're both really fired up. Jessica Beckman likewise 5th, she's always racy, and Josh Price looking to try and put some misfortune from yesterday behind him from 6th. Finley Crocker is 7th in the second of the FK7 Civics, and Stuart Lyons in 8th in the first of the 2 Cupras. The second one is Carl Swift at 9th on the grid alongside Howard Fuller, who said he has eyes only for the front and he will do anything it takes to get there. Alex Morgan in the Megane, great to see the Megane making its debut in the UK, a really new project, that Megane TCR car, and they are just ironing out a few little kinks. Darrell Wilson lining up 12th on the grid. Now, we were supposed to have an extra couple of cars out there, both of the DPE Motorsport Alfa Romeo Giuliettas, unfortunately, Rob Gilmore and Derek Palmer have had problems. And speaking of problems, Stuart Lyons' car, well, it's left the grid but hasn't gone much further. It can't make it up the hill to Paddock Hill Bend. Now, this may well mean that we have a delayed start because that car is Has it fired up? Is it going? There's a bit of a conversation going on. Let's hope it can get going, because it will be good to see Stuart out there. No, they're signalling that it needs a tow, so that's a real shame. The D&G recovery truck is already on hand, but this may well mean that we get a delayed start and possibly a second green flag lap. We'll have to wait and see, but that's a shame for Stuart, because he and Carl Swift really were looking forward to this weekend, and they're looking for a good grid position in race 2 as well, which we'll get on to a little bit later on, but with their sequential gearboxes in those cars now, and the fact that they're both running under the Maximum Motorsport banner, that means that they've really been able to work together and save themselves an awful lot of time during the pre-practice sessions, and therefore they were hoping that would lead to a real upturn in performance during the races. Cars are lining up on the grid, but I'm fairly certain that we will have a delayed start situation, that being the reason, because the recovery is still ongoing. Team members running out onto the circuit now to try and fix whatever the drama is for Stuart Lyons, but that is a real shame for the Midlander, who has been really up for it this weekend, really felt that he could be on for some good results. He and Carl Swift likewise. Well, the car is being towed away. Now we need to wait and see whether we're going to get another green flag lap, because of course the car's been sat on the grid for... Oh, it's fired up now. Well, that's always the way, isn't it? Now, can he come back round and retake? The race hasn't started yet, so I see no reason why he can't retake, if not his original grid position, at least he should be able to start from the pit lane or from the back of the grid. So that is good news, but of course there is clearly some sort of underlying issue, possibly an electrical issue of some sort. He's giving the car a bit of a workover on its way back round to the pit lane, but is this going to be a race start, or is it going to be a secondary green flag lap? Car seems okay, there's no smoke, there's nothing hanging off it, it's just conked out as it made its way off the grid, so and then suddenly fired back into life. So the Maximum Motorsport car number 95 of Stuart Lyons, that was due to start 8th on the grid, may or may not be able to retake 8th on the grid. Let's see if he heads into the pit lane. No, he's heading onto the grid, so he clearly feels that whatever the issue was, it's sorted now. And are they going to wave him in at the back of the grid? Looks like they are, yes. They're going to put him in behind Alex Morgan and alongside Darryl Wilson. So Stuart Lyons presumably will take the start from the back of the grid as we get a second green flag lap. So let's try this again, and we'll keep our eyes on that green and white Seat at the back of the grid to see whether it hits any similar issues this time around. It looked like the car was moving, so I lied when I said that the last green flag lap was the last opportunity the drivers would have to check out the circuit, because they now have another opportunity to do so. I don't think it's going to take any time off the race, though. We should still be able to run to the full 30 minutes as Finley Crocker in the Verizon Connect car. Gives me a chance maybe to just give you a little bit more information about the championship standings. We saw them briefly earlier on after the highlights from Knock Hill. Dan Lloyd, unsurprisingly, with 4 wins from 4 pole positions, is on 182 points, maximum points scored by Dan Lloyd. In fact, that was coming into the weekend. He's now scored another 11 points, because you scored points for qualifying, 11 points for pole, 9 for second, 8 for third, and so on, down to 1 point for 10th. So after qualifying yesterday, Dan Lloyd moves through onto 193 points. Second place is Andreas Beckman on 124, and Ollie Taylor third on 118. So he has closed the gap slightly to Andreas. Of course, Ollie had that non-finish in race 2 at Knock Hill after he tangled, ironically, with Andreas' sister Jessica late on in race 2, put him into the gravel and out of the race. Ollie Taylor is looking for another upturn in pace this weekend. Well, very quickly before the race gets underway, I believe that Bryn has an update from the pit lane for us.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. I was just talking to Stuart Lyons' team, and they were telling me that the actual problem was the air jacks, the pneumatic jacks, if only I could say it, had dropped down. So they actually had come back out of place, and they're not sure why, but then they got the problems fixed, and off he went. So they're not sure why it happened, but that is what happened.
Right, okay, that's a new one. That's not something we see very often, but at least we know it's not actually an issue with the car, provided it doesn't happen again, I suppose, but it seems okay at the moment. No, there's nothing hanging down underneath the car, so good stuff there. So thanks very much for that, Bryn. Bryn on the case, patrolling the pit lane over the course of our TCR UK weekend. So let's try this again. Dan Lloyd lines up on pole position. Strength in numbers, I suppose, for West Coast Racing, with all 3 cars inside the top 5 on the grid. But Ollie Taylor said to me yesterday that he reckons from the outside of row 1, he can challenge Dan Lloyd into Paddock Hill Bend. And if he can, he's not backing out of it. He wants a race victory in his shiny new Honda Civic FK7. What's going to happen? 30 minutes of racing about to get underway here from Brands Hatch. Round number 5 is go. Who makes the start from the front row of the grid? Looks like a fairly even one, but Taylor is alongside. Ollie Taylor is challenging for the race lead down towards Paddock Gilbert, and he gets it. Ollie Taylor takes the race lead into Paddock, and he will lead Dan Lloyd out down the hill towards Druids. Jinks across to the right to defend, and he holds on to the race lead. So Taylor leads, Lloyd second, but Lewis Kent is coming up the inside as well now. Dan Lloyd, contact from Lewis Kent into the back of Dan Lloyd's car, and again, bang, bang. This is all allowing Ollie Taylor to escape. Lloyd is being assaulted left, right and centre. Kent now gets into the side of Andreas Beckman as well, who's sideways. Kent over onto the grass. It's all kicked off at the start of this race. Josh Price is in the mix as well. More contact. Oh, Beckman goes around in front of the pack. Let's hope they all avoid it. They do. No. Howard Fuller's off. Howard Fuller and Finley Crocker tangle, and finally we have a car properly off the road, and unfortunately it is Howard Fuller. But how on earth that didn't wipe out half the field, I will never know. Ollie Taylor leads at the end of the opening lap. Dan Lloyd is second, a huge gap back to somehow still Lewis Kent there in third position. Josh Price is fourth, Jessica Beckman is fifth, and Andreas Beckman, rather wound up after all of that, I'd imagine, is down in sixth place. Crocker is seventh, Swift is eighth, Stuart Lyons is already back to ninth, with Alex Morgan rounding out the top 10. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a real fight on our hands. Ollie Taylor versus Dan Lloyd. Ollie said that if he could get in front of Dan, he really felt that he could get his elbows out and become the first different winner in the season. Remember, Dan has won all 4 races so far this year, and Ollie Taylor is determined to bring that run to an end here at Brands Hatch. Hard on the brakes though. Lloyd's on the inside of him. Are they going to lean on each other? No, they just about keep it clean. I notice Ollie Taylor's fuel filler cap has come loose, but that won't be bothering him too much now as he powers back onto the pit straight. Ollie Taylor in this beautiful new FK7 Civic. They've done a really good job with the paint scheme on that car for this weekend, and it is leading the way from Dan Lloyd in second, Lewis Kent in third, Josh Price in fourth, has just set the fastest lap of the race, so he is coming and closing in on the Hyundai in front of him. Up towards Druids we come once more. There is Kent, there is Price, then the 2 Beckmans, Jessica ahead of Andreas, but Andreas had Finley Crocker looking up the inside there, I think, as they went up towards the right-hander at Druids. We'll check back in on those in a moment or two. Out of Graham Hill Bend though goes Ollie Taylor, leading Dan Lloyd down towards the left-hander at Surtees. 100 miles an hour at the apex through this left-hander. It's a daunting corner, and then hard on the brakes, turning through the right. It's bumpy, it's uphill, and then the road drops away dramatically on the exit of the corner, and in front-wheel drive touring cars, particularly as the tyres start to go away, understeer becomes a real issue at that part of the circuit. Now, Dan Lloyd is an awful lot closer this time as we make our way up towards Paddock Hill Bend. Taylor knows it, drives down the middle of the road there. That's the defensive line into Paddock, but that can then slow you down on the exit, and that's what Dan Lloyd is hoping for as he tries to carry more speed up the hill towards Druids. Can't get himself alongside for the time being, though. Goes back to the outside line as he turns his way in towards the right-hander, cocks a rear right wheel. Don't tell me that Dan Lloyd's just been taking it easy this year. He wants to win every race. He wants to be at the top of the times in every session, and he is willing to push to the limit to do it. But he's going to have to push to the limit, I think, to do it this weekend, because Ollie Taylor is very much the match for him so far. Lloyd just nicked that fastest lap back away from Josh Price, by the way, so 49.8 is the first sub-50-second lap as they turn their way through the right-hander back onto the pit straight again. Lloyd at this stage of the race does look quicker, but Ollie was saying to me that the Honda Civics, both the new shape and the old shape Civic, really seem to look after their tyres well. Remember, we still have 26.5 minutes left of this race. If you just hang on for the first half of the race, who knows, the pendulum could swing back in his favour through the second half. That seems to be where Lloyd is quickest, through Paddock, but so far at least, Ollie Taylor has been defending well. Finley Crocker now sets the fastest lap of the race, back in 7th position as he continues his pursuit of Jessica and Andreas Beckman. Of course, Ollie Taylor, as he starts defending, he is holding both himself and Dan Lloyd up. They were 4/10 slower than Lewis Kent and Josh Price behind them on the previous lap, and Lewis is only 1.6 back. There is Lewis, look, the orange and white Hyundai. Now, that could actually benefit Ollie Taylor, because if you can back Dan Lloyd up, oh, Lloyd at the inside, out of absolutely nowhere. Dan Lloyd goes for the race lead. There's a bit of contact. He leans on Ollie Taylor and he goes back through. So, Dan Lloyd, forget what I was about to say about Ollie Taylor hanging on to the race lead. Dan Lloyd has got the lead back, and he will want to make good his escape, because Taylor will fight back if there's half an opportunity. Has a look to the inside into Paddock, but Dan is very late on the brakes, just about gets it across to the apex, and now he tries to pull away off into the distance. But if Taylor just sticks with him, manages the tyres, you never know what might happen through the second half of the race. He's got to watch out there, because Lewis Kent is not far behind, and Josh Price is continuing to look racy. Fastest man on the track, or fastest driver, I should say, on the track last time out was actually Jessica Beckman in 5th position. black and white warning flag going out to Josh Price. That will be presumably for exceeding the track limits. That's awfully early in the race to be being warned about track limits. If he does it again, he'll be given a 5-second time penalty, which would really ruin his race. Back out through clearways again, 5 minutes down. We're about to come through and complete the 6th lap of the race. Here's a replay. Dan Lloyd was an absolute country mile back, and that meant that Ollie Taylor didn't feel that he had to defend, but in the end it turned out he did, and that was a lovely clean move. A tiny bit of paint traded, but that was just a good, firm but fair move, and Ollie won't have any issues with that at all. I'm sure he would rather have kept Dan behind him, but at least the manner in which Dan got through was fair and clean. Has to be said, though, that Taylor is staying with him thus far. He was only a couple of tenths slower on the previous lap. He's managing to stay in the slipstream of Dan Lloyd's West Coast Racing VW Golf. There's confirmation that Finley Crocker has set the fastest lap. He's also found a way past Andreas Beckman now. So Finley Crocker is into 6th place and closing on this lead group. We might just be able to see him in the background. There he is. Finley Crocker has found a way past Andreas Beckman. You do wonder, though, whether Andreas's car has sustained some sort of damage from all of that contact on the opening lap, because he was right in the thick of it and got sideways on a couple of occasions. There's Carl Swift in the Maximum Motorsport prepared Cupra. This is the fight for 3rd place then. Lewis Kent in the Hyundai, the Honda Civic, the old shape FK2 Civic of Josh Price in 4th, and 5th place for Jessica Beckman, having by far her most competitive run of the season so far. Jess's best finish so far has been a pair of 6th places, so she's already potentially on for her best finish of the year so far, but she's actually looking quicker than the cars in front of her. There's her brother Andreas defending from Stuart Lyons, who will be very grateful that he was able to get that car out onto the grid, because he's launched up the order into 8th position now. Swift is 9th, Darrell Wilson is 10th, and Alex Morgan, potentially struggling with that issue with power steering, is down in 11th place. Howard Fuller, by the way, did rejoin from his first lap spin up at this part of the circuit, so he's running around at the back, but only 2.3 seconds behind Alex Morgan. The fastest lap of the race set by the race leader that time around, as Andreas Beckman runs a little bit wide. Look at Jessica, though. Jessica right with Josh Price now, and that Golf is quick, and Jessica is not afraid to get stuck in. We saw that at Knock Hill. She had a couple of bits of contact with a couple of different drivers, including, of course, that terminal contact with Ollie Taylor that put Ollie out of the racing race too. And Josh Price will be aware of that. I'm sure that Jessica, having come from a rallycross background, is well used to getting her elbows out, and if there isn't a gap, she's not averse to making a gap, and so perhaps Josh just needs to be careful where he's defending here. He doesn't want to leave the door open even a tiny bit as he goes defensive, though. He's allowing Lewis Kent to just escape slightly up the road from him. Back through McLaren's, bit of a lock up there as the unweighted right rear wheel of Josh Price's Honda Civic just snatches the ground, but they are definitely dropping back from Kent, and Finley Crocker is lapping about half a second quicker than these two, so this could yet become a three-way fight for 4th position before too much longer. Back on the brakes into Paddock Hill Bend. Quarter of a second officially is the gap between these two cars, but you can see it there. It's about a car length and a bit separating Honda from VW. Where is Finley Crocker? Finley Crocker has just lost a couple of places on that lap. Andreas Beckman and Stuart Lyons have gone through, because I just saw in the background the next car in line behind Jessica Beckman should have been Finley Crocker. It isn't, it's now her brother again, so 2 places lost somewhere on the previous lap for Crocker. Not sure where, possibly an off-track excursion somewhere, but we will see if we can catch up on what happened with him. Either way, he'll be looking to try and regain that ground as swiftly as possible. Back out through clearways then, 8.5 minutes to go. Dare I say it, things starting to calm down for the time being. The lead gap is still only 0.7 of a second. Ollie Taylor losing hardly anything to Dan Lloyd with each lap that goes by. This gap could not get much tighter. Another hint of a lock-up there for Josh Price. He turns his way into Paddock Hill Bend, but Jessica Beckman runs a little bit deep on the brakes into that corner as well. She said that that was the corner that all weekend long she's been struggling to get used to, and well, I'm not surprised, because there are racing drivers who have been driving this place for years, maybe even decades, and they still can't quite get Paddock Hill Bend right. It really is one of the most challenging corners in British motorsport, and Jessica, like her brother Andreas, of course, never having driven this place before this weekend, so she is learning every time she gets in the car, but really learning an awful lot more quickly at this stage of the season than maybe she was right at the start of the year. Black and white warning flag for Howard Fuller, who will be even more frustrated and even more determined to make progress than he was at the start of the race. He's found a way past Alex Morgan, so he's now into 11th, but being warned for exceeding the track limits, as the lead gap, well, again, it's going out by 1/10 of a second every lap, but only by 1/10 of a second, and if this is Taylor looking after his tyres, then it could well be that he's playing the long game now that he's lost the lead. Andreas Beckman there with Stuart Lyons behind. Finley Crocker, there you can see in the background, is still going, so whatever the moment or the issue was, I'm not too sure, but it doesn't appear to have damaged the car. Yeah, that's a shame. The Megane, well, this is a project very much in its infancy, and Alex competing in TCR Germany predominantly this year with the Megane TCR car, and he did the first round at Oschersleben and then elected to miss the next round in order to continue working on the car, and is using this weekend just to get a bit more seat time and to try and just iron out a few of the issues that they're having. And unfortunately, it seems like that is still an ongoing problem. Black and white warning flag now for Ollie Taylor, who matches Dan Lloyd that time. In fact, was fractionally quicker than the race leader, possibly because he's been exceeding the track limits. That's no mechanic, but something's overheating there, isn't it? Possibly brakes, or could be power steering related, I guess, couldn't it? They're certainly delving deep in the Vukovic squad, who have flown over to support Alex this weekend, the team with which he runs in TCR Germany. So back with the action then, Andreas Beckman and Stuart Lyons there. They're still dicing over 6th position, but Stuart's best finish of the year so far, 8th. He had a 9th and an 8th back at Silverstone. There is Howard Fuller. So Howard Fuller has now, as we said, caught the back of the field. He passed Alex Morgan. He's now challenging Darrell Wilson, but then the next car is about 7.5 seconds up the road. Morgan is heading back onto the circuit, albeit quite tentatively, possibly because the leaders are about to appear on the scene at full racing speed. But Howard Fuller now trying his best to find a way past the struggling Vauxhall Astra. Darrell's been saying that he's just not had the pace, not had the power all weekend long, and he will be struggling potentially to keep Howard Fuller at bay. As that battle rages on, I believe we can head down to Bryn, who maybe has some Alex Morgan related news.
Yeah, that's right. Alex came into the pits, took on some fluids himself. Obviously, it's very hot out there on track. But they told me they're having a few electrical problems within the car, and that is what they're trying to fix. But what they've actually done is they've temporarily fixed it again, sent him back out. All they really want to do is get some time in that car out on track.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a glorified pair of test sessions for them, really. Of course, you get a lot of track time for your money with TCR UK. You get 2 30-minute races plus 2 30-minute practice sessions on the Saturday. Oh, Howard Fuller off in the gravel. Oh, dear me. Well, he's certainly pushing hard. He saw half a chance there to get up the inside of Darrell Wilson into clearways and just couldn't stop the car once he'd committed. So rather than running to the back of Darrell, he ran wide, got on the marbles, and the rest was history. Gets out of the gravel track, though, thankfully, but loses a couple of seconds. He had 3 seconds behind when he crossed the line that time. Back out of Druids comes Carl Swift. Carl Swift running in 9th position. About 2 seconds back from Finley Crocker. Well, look at that, you can see there just how close Howard Fuller came to colliding with the back of the green Astra. 5-second time penalty already for exceeding track limits for Josh Price in 4th position. Josh Price has already been given a 5-second time penalty. Now, he won't be happy with that, but of course we're running at a Motorsport Vision run circuit this weekend, so we have the dreaded track limit sensors, which are located just on the outside edges, or just over the outside edges of the red and white painted curbs, and if you trigger that sensor, it's a bit like a speed camera really on the road, so you get an automatic photo taken of your car, so that when you then go up to see the clerk of the course post-race and you try to claim that you didn't exceed the track limits, there's the visual proof there in front of you that you did. And already it would appear that Josh Price has done that once too many times for the clerk of the course's liking, and so a 5-second time penalty has been applied to this Autoglim BMR Academy car, which has been struggling for pace a little this weekend, but he is running well in 4th place on the road. But of course, once you add 5 seconds onto that time, he will lose quite a handful of positions. We'll see when the timing screen corrects itself this time, exactly where he falls in line. No doubt about where Dan Lloyd is, though. He's now 1.7 seconds clear of Ollie Taylor, so he is continuing just to build out this lead by a 10th or 2 a lap. And Ollie Taylor, 4.6 seconds clear of Lewis Kent, so actually Ollie will be fairly happy with that, I think. Of course, thinking ahead to race 2, he'll be starting ahead of Dan Lloyd for that one with the reverse grid, so not necessarily the end of the world if he finishes second in this one. The good points that Ollie really needs. Of course, Ollie came into this race on 118 points, just 6 points behind Andreas Beckman for 2nd place in the championship. So if he can finish where he is now, with Andreas down in 6th, he will move back into 2nd place. Dan Lloyd, though, looking to try and extend his championship lead. The West Coast Racing Squad looking to extend their team's championship lead as well, which was already getting on for 200 points of an advantage over Pyro Motorsport. Best Pyro car, of course, is Ollie Taylor in 2nd. There's Lewis Kent 3rd. There is Price. There is Andreas Beckman. Big lock up ahead for Lewis Kent. That's been a common sight this weekend, and he's been really going through his tyres at a rate of knots as a result of his aggressive driving style. But thus far, it's working well for Lewis, running in 3rd position. 4.6 back from Ollie Taylor, running comparable lap times really. Everyone pretty much running in the mid to high 50-second bracket now, so a couple of seconds off what they were doing in qualifying. That's because A, they've got a full tank of fuel, and B, they're trying to really manage the tyre wear. It's not quite as bright sunshine as we've had previously in the weekend, but it's still very warm, very humid, and the track temperature is still very high indeed. Right, should we try this again, Howard? He's now caught Darrell Wilson again, and we're heading down towards the part of the circuit where he nearly got a bit too close for comfort to Darrell Wilson a few laps ago. Clearly got pace, because twice now he's been able to reel in the Astra, which locks up. It's actually the Astra this time that seems to be struggling with the braking. Fuller keeps it nice and neat and tidy, tries to carry some speed out onto the pit straight. Paddock Hill Bend is one of the better overtaking opportunities on the circuit, so if he gets a really good run in the slipstream, he could challenge, although it looks like that Astra is, if anything, a little bit quicker than the Civic in a straight line. Hard on the brakes, into the right-hander, and much quicker through there, much neater through there is Fuller, but where do you go with it? You can carry all the momentum in the world through Paddock Hill Bend, but where can you find the space? Has another look up the inside into Druid, but there was no real point in sticking the nose in too far, because in all reality, with now less than half the race to go, this may be the highest that Howard is able to get anyway. Oh dear, Alex Morgan back in, and this time it seems like it is for retirement, so power steering issues appearing to be very much still the order of the day. Oh, Fuller, Howard Fuller, one of the most exciting drivers to watch on the circuit, isn't he, Howard Fuller? He's always on it, always committed. Doesn't matter whether he's fighting for the lead of a race or for, as he is in this case, 10th place. He still wants to get every ounce of performance out of that car, but he very nearly again got into the back of Darrell Wilson's Astra there. He was definitely quicker, we've seen that. He's capable of running a good half a second or so a lap quicker than Wilson at this stage, but just needs to take his time really. They're 13 seconds back of Carl Swift, and that time the mistake came from Darrell Wilson. Oh, they lean on each other on the exit of the corner. That seemed a bit unnecessary. Wilson on the inside line, Fuller goes through, so he made hard work of that, did Howard, but he has now found a way through into 10th position. Wilson now will try and follow him, see if he can come back at it maybe at this far end of the circuit, but we seem able to carry quite the same speed through Surtees, but then Howard might just open the door for him anyway if he keeps on with that sort of wayward antics. Back with our 4th place battle now, Josh Price and Jessica Beckman. I think I said Andreas a few laps ago. It is Jessica, of course, who's running better of the two Beckmans in this race in 5th. Andreas has been catching though, and is now within a second and a half of this battle, so Andreas may be learning how to drive around whatever the damage is that's been done to that car. I'm fairly convinced there's some sort of damage been done, and Andreas is starting to find a bit of pace again towards the second half of the race. Of course, Josh Price has this 5-second time penalty to be applied, which hasn't yet been applied on the timing screen, so we assume it may be applied post-race. Well, having said that, in fact, as I said that, the message disappeared from the timing screen, so I'll say what I see, and what I see is that Josh Price is still running 4th on the timing screen, so let's, for argument's sake, say that he now doesn't have a time penalty, and he's running in 4th position. So, as far as we're aware, this is a genuine fight for position again now. It's possible, of course, that the team have appealed the decision, and potentially they have decided to reverse the decision. Well, before this really kicks off on the circuit over the final 10 minutes, let's hand back down to Bryn in the pits, who I believe has found a rather worn-out Alex Morgan.
Yeah, that's right. Alex Morgan here with me. Alex, not what we wanted to see is you standing here out of the car. Just talk us through what happened.
Well, like I said before the race, we were trying a few things, and it was 50-50 whether they were going to work or not. Some fixed the issues we had and some didn't, but the main one that we're struggling with is still the power. So we've got another thing to try for the next race, so fingers crossed that one will work, and hopefully we can leave you with a good race at the end of the day.
So the intention is to get it all fixed and be out there for race 2?
Yeah, the car runs, it's just obviously not running optimally, so we've got to try this other thing now and see if that fixes it, and if it does, we'll be in the race and fighting. So we're not here to make the numbers up, but we've got to do what we can.
Right, great stuff. We'll go and cool down.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks, Bryn. I think that's good advice there for Alex Morgan, who's been working for his money this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. Now, this is the battle for 6th position. Andreas Beckman, Stuart Lyons and Finlay Crocker. Now, there's a crowd of exciting drivers to watch. All of these are, they tend to be in the thick of the action, don't they? And Finlay Crocker trying to recover from whatever the mystery issue was that he had about 15 minutes ago or so. And they are all continuing to close in on the Price and Jessica Beckman squabble. Well, not on that particular lap actually, because I think that Andreas has had to really start driving a bit more defensively now to keep Stuart Lyons at bay. Incidentally, at the front of the field, the lead gap is just inching back down again. Now remember, we're getting into the realms of the race now with nearly 2/3 of the race gone, where tyre wear is starting to become a bigger factor with every lap that goes by. And those who have managed their tyres better through the first 2/3 of the race may start to find an advantage in the last third of the race, and this is where Finley Crocker, I think, will be finding an advantage, because we know that the Civics in particular look after their tyres very well, and he is really starting to attack Stuart Lyons here. So Finley Crocker may be running an 8th at the moment, but he will sense an opportunity maybe to start improving upon that position. Back onto the pit straight, Beckman, Lyons and Crocker still the order. 3 different marks, of course, so we've got 7 different marks now represented in TCR UK this weekend, with the inclusion of Alex Morgan's McGann. And so you can see here through the midfield squabbles, there's actually nothing to choose between them. The VW, the Seat and the Honda are all running near identical lap times, and at this stage of the race that's fairly impressive. Finley Crocker running way deep there into Druids, but not yet able to draw fully alongside Stuart Lyons. Back out onto the Cooper straight again, and the gap's really ebbing and flowing. They are now, though, within a 1.5 seconds of the Price and Jessica Beckman battle, who in turn are lapping, well, relatively similar pace to Lewis Kent in front of them. So it's starting to tighten up here as we get into the final part of this opening race of the weekend for TCR UK, round 5 of the 2018 championship. Fast approaching the midway point of the season. We've seen some sensational racing. Knockhill last time out was very entertaining, and this race has not failed to deliver either, has it? We've had so much drama in the early part of the racing. Some of the oh dear, Finley Crocker for the 2nd lap in a row running wide there at Druids. Some of the racing we saw in those opening laps, that was proper touring car stuff, wasn't it? And it goes to show that TCR racing is just as exciting as any other touring car championship in the world, and that is why it's been taking the world by storm. Back through Surtees they go. These gaps, though, just starting to eke back out again, as Andreas Beckman's been able to shake off the attentions of Stuart Lyons for the time being, although Stuart seems really strong through the clearway section of the circuit. Really seems to close in on the Beckman car in front of him. Flash back through again, the gap comes down by a 1/10 between the pair of Beckmans, and Jessica fractionally quicker than Josh Price. Dan Lloyd just 1.9 seconds now clear of Ollie Taylor, so he's reacted a little bit to Taylor's pace, although the previous lap he was 3/10 slower than Taylor. So I think even Dan is starting to struggle with tyre wear. The lap times have really dropped off. We're now 1.2 seconds off the outright pace that we had earlier on, so that goes to show that on a short lap like this, 1.2 seconds is an absolute age. So they really are starting to struggle for front end grip, and of course it's not just the grip goes away, but there is a potential, particularly if you've set your car off a bit too aggressively with camber settings and whatnot, there is the potential that you could wear the tyre right down to the canvas or even blow it out altogether. So there'll be a few panicky team members, I'm sure, down in garages, just hoping and praying that the drivers can get the cars through to the end without any major tyre problems. There is Lloyd, pulled back away from Taylor by a 1/10 on the previous lap. Looks okay, but just not quite as pointy, not quite as sharp as it was earlier on. I'm sure Dan will be trying to measure this as well and just drive to a lap time, a certain lap time that's just quick enough to maintain the gap, but without having to really overwork the tyres too much. Dan, you can see now as the sun really comes out again here at Brands Hatch, that brilliant paint scheme, sort of iridescent paint scheme that they've got on these West Coast racing cars. They do look fantastic, and when you get the sunshine glinting off the bodywork, they look particularly fetching. So does this car, though. Ollie Taylor's new Civic has been performing really well this weekend. A real upturn in pace for Ollie, who's been quick all year, but just has that extra bit of confidence in this new car. And Ollie doesn't look as though he's going to be able to challenge Dan Lloyd perhaps in this race, but they'll make a few changes before race 2. As I said, he will be starting ahead of Dan. He'll be starting 9th on the grid in race 2 with the reverse grid race, but Dan will be 10th, and if he can get a couple of cars between himself and the championship leader, in the early going. And who knows what he could achieve as the race goes on. Oh, Andreas Beckman and Stuart Lyons finally. Stuart's prized the door open. There was a bit of a mistake there from Andreas down at Graham Hill Bend. Andreas tries to close the door into Surtees, can't do it, and Finley Crocker's going to follow him through. Great opportunistic driving there from Finley Crocker to gain a place out of all of that. He read the situation brilliantly well. Stuart Lyons just had superior traction coming out of Graham Hill Bend, got up the inside of Andreas, and the rest was history. And then once, a bit NASCAR style really, isn't it? Once you get hung out to dry and there's a couple of cars behind you, the chances are they're both going to go through. That was exactly the case there. Just spy Alex Morgan's car driving down the pit lane, so I wonder whether they've tempted Alex to get back into the car for the final 5 minutes just to shake down a few of the changes they might have made in preparation for race 2. Let's hope that they're able to show what that car can really do in race 2 later on. Whoops, Stuart Lyons not making friends with the apex there at Druids, but you are able to carry fairly good exit speed when you run wide at Druids because it's so steeply downhill, so although you leave the door open through the corner, you then carry some good speed off it. Finley Crocker carrying some good speed down the Cooper Straight there. He's well within striking range now. Could have a go at Stuart here on the brakes. He's looking to the inside. The car starts to duck and dive and wobble. Oh, he's all out of shape. Careful, Finley. That's going to open the door to Andreas Beckman to possibly come back at him side by side out through clearways. Honda on the right, VW on the left. And, well, that was Finley just determined to try and attack Stuart Lyons in front of him, but just pushed a bit too hard and ends up losing a place. And how your fortunes can change in just a split second. Beckman goes through. Finley will try to come back at him up towards Druids, goes to the inside, then back to the outside. Verizon Connect car has to stay in line behind. So, Stuart Lyons, he's slipping down our timing screen. We've lost him, haven't we? He should still be there in front of these two who are making friends coming out of Graham Hill Bend again. Finley Crocker, yes, there is Stuart Lyons, so it's clearly a transponder issue. So Andreas Beckman really having to defend now from Finley into the part of the circuit where Crocker had a go on the previous lap. He's a little more circumspect on the brakes this time, unsurprisingly, and so he is unable to find a way back past the Swedish driver. Beckmans who live in northern Sweden, actually inside the Arctic Circle, so they will not be feeling particularly at home in these very summery conditions. Mid-20s the temperature here at Brands Hatch this weekend. But Andreas working hard and is able now to pull back away from Finley Crocker for the time being. They've really lost ground though now to Stuart Lyons in front of them. So Stuart Lyons, who although he's showing on our timing tower down the left-hand side of the screen as being down in 11, I don't believe he is. Crocker though is all out of shape. They've got a wheel on the grass coming into Graham Hill Bend and then runs wide on the exit. That just loses him an extra car length or so to the car in front. So back through towards the final 3 minutes now goes, well, Lewis Kent there with that bit of trim that's been hanging off the car right from the word go pretty much. Had those bits of contact on the opening lap with Dan Lloyd, and Andreas Beckman was involved as well. And ever since then, the car has been running more or less on its own actually in third place. This is by far and away going to be Lewis's best finish of the year. It will be his first podium result. His previous best finish was 8th, so this is a real standout performance for the youngster, the local youngster as well. This is very much his local circuit, as we heard him saying earlier on, and the Essex and Kent Motorsport squad will be absolutely made up with this. They've been a little frustrated with the performance of this car. Of course, there have been a few BOP changes, balance performance changes since the last round, and they felt it had hurt the Hyundai a little bit unfairly, but third place will not be a bad afternoon's work for Lewis, and he'll be looking to try and maybe go 1 or 2 better in race 2. He's definitely got the speed. He's always had the speed. It's just lack of experience. But what do you expect for a 19-year-old? You know, he hasn't been racing for all that long. He's been through some of the junior tip-top formulae, but this is a whole other level for Lewis. He's doing a fantastic job. West Coast Racing look remarkably nervous, don't they, down in the pit lane as they watch their man Dan Lloyd continue to circulate now. We'll probably have time for 2 more laps after this one. He's got a 3-second margin over Ollie Taylor in second place, and I do believe he's just been managing the gap. You can see the car visually is not as quick as it was before through the right-hander at Surtees. He's really trying to drive tentatively on those tyres. Ollie Taylor looks like he's driving a bit more aggressively. He was a bit quicker than Lloyd on the previous lap, but he won't want to throw away a perfectly good second place, especially when he's got another 3 seconds nearly in hand over Lewis Kent behind him. A 51.3 for Dan Lloyd, a 51.2 for Ollie Taylor, so again quicker, but only fractionally. Lewis Kent still third, Josh Price fourth, Andreas Beckman, Jessica Beckman, I've done it again, I do apologise, Jessica, 5th place for her. 6th place is now Stuart Lyons, he's been reinstated into 6th. 7th place is Andreas Beckman, and 8th for Finley Crocker. Carl Swift 9th, and Howard Fuller 10th, but not really making that much progress onto the back of Carl Swift's Cupra. So Dan Lloyd looking for the 5th victory from 5 races in 2018. This is dominance personified, isn't it, in motor racing terms. We do not see this very often, but it shows what sort of a class act Dan Lloyd is, what a class act West Coast Racing are. They've really got their hands, got their heads, around this VW Golf TCR car, and he is now just 1 lap away from win number 5 in 2018. Really tentative as he turns through Paddock Hill Bend. He was 3/10 slower than Ollie Taylor on the previous lap. Ollie will keep pushing, why not? You never know, if Dan runs into some significant tyre issues on the last lap, he could still pick something up. But also, of course, he's got Lewis Kent now only 2 seconds behind him. Lewis Kent, actually, remarkably, is the only one in the top 3 running in the 50-second bracket still. He's still running within 1 second of his previous best lap. And that's really interesting, because you look at the time drop off for the rest of the cars towards the front of the field, and Lewis Kent there in the Hyundai is still going as quickly as ever, so that bodes well. Clearly he's figured out how to look after his tyres a little bit better now. He will come home, it looks like, in 3rd place in this race, but the race victory is going to go to Dan Lloyd for the 5th time in 2018. Dan Lloyd wins in TCR UK, and he will be very happy with that. Ollie Taylor will, if anything, be even happier with 2nd place in the debut, for him at least, of the FK7 Civic, with Lewis Kent coming home in 3rd. Now 4th on the timing screen, we've got Jessica Beckman, because Josh Price has slowed. Josh Price has slowed on the last lap. Now, is that damage? Is it a puncture? Trying to have a look at maybe the front left corner. No, the tyres are up. Tyres are up. That's strange, isn't it? Josh Price, for whatever reason, drops down to 9th place on the last lap. So Jessica Beckman gets 4th place, which is her best finish of the year now by 2 positions. And Stuart Lyons, likewise in 5th, gets his best finish of the year. So lots of feel-good stories down the field. But what on earth happened to Josh Price? We'll have to try and find out between races for you. Dan Lloyd, though, manages to bring it home. He backed the pace right off towards the end, but he is victorious here at Brands Hatch. A cracking race that was, though, and he really had to work for that one, arguably harder than he's had to work for any other win this year, even the reverse grid races, because he really had some stiff competition from Ollie Taylor in that one. There is confirmation of the result then. 1.8 seconds the eventual winning margin after Dan just coasted at home. Taylor 2nd, Lewis Kent in 3rd, a 1st podium ever in TCR racing for Lewis in the Hyundai i30. Jessica Beckman, best finish for her in 4th, and Stuart Lyons, best finish for him in 5th. Andreas Beckman is 6th, Finley Crocker is 7th, Carl Swift comes home in 8th position. That is also his best finish of the year so far. Josh Price, though, a mystery drama on the last lap, drops him down from 4th to 9th, whilst Howard Fuller will be frustrated after what happened to him on the first lap. He manages 10th. Darryl Wilson is 11th, and Alex Morgan, I don't think was running at the end. No, he came back into the pit lane again. Hopefully they'll get that car fixed and a little bit more competitive for race 2. So down into the pit lane they come, and Dan Lloyd, well, he'll have some interesting stories to tell. The car will not be as pristine as it usually is, I don't think, after all of the contact that he had on the opening lap. In comes Ollie Taylor, and look at how happy the Essex and Kent motorsport squad are with Lewis Kent's 1st ever podium. That will be some real vindication for Lewis, who we've said all along has the speed, but maybe had a little bit of bad luck, maybe lacks a bit of that experience in wheel-to-wheel combat, but a podium finish for him is fantastic stuff. Dan Lloyd, though, a win once more, and he is very, very happy with that. Handshakes all round with friends, family, and the West Coast Racing team. And he is now getting very, very familiar with the top step of the podium, but he won't be complaining. He'll be quite happy to keep on winning races all season long, if at all possible. It's not going to be easy to do, though. I think we've really seen in this race that not only is the competition stiffer now than it ever has been, but I think the competition are more determined than ever to do something about him, basically. They don't want him to win every race, and they're starting to get close enough to him, performance-wise, that maybe they might be able to stop him. Look at that, Lewis Kent. Well, do you know what? I don't think there's a dry eye in the house at the Essex and Kent Motorsport garage. Lewis hugs with his grandfather, David Creel, who wanders off in quiet contemplation, and they will be ecstatic with 3rd place. Equally happy, though, with his 5th win of the season will be Dan Lloyd. He's with Brim.
Thanks very much, Andy. Dan, what have people got to do to stop you?
I don't know, cock up the start maybe. Yeah, it was angry with myself at the start, but I got caught out, I bogged, and Ollie got me, fair play. Took quite a big hit up at Druids, and it was so close to going round. Really happy I held it. it was just about settling down and watching Ollie, watch where he was quick and where he wasn't, and picked my spot about 2 or 3 laps before, and I knew what I was going to do, and just made sure it stuck.
So you made sure you got close enough, you stayed there, and then you picked that moment and off you went.
Yeah, exactly. Ollie was weak into the last corner, under braking, so I actually left a bit of a gap, got a bit of momentum through the corner, and then got him into it, so yeah, great.
Once you get the inside there, it's pretty much yours, isn't it? Now, how hard was it out there? Because we said before, 30-minute race in these conditions, you look like you've lost a lot of fluid, should we say?
Yeah, it was really tough. I mean, a lot of pickup on the track as well, so worst thing was thinking about a puncture. There was so much pickup, the sound was awful, so I mean, means a lot this win. We've got a lot going on in the background to help me keep going for the rest of the year. Some new sponsors maybe coming on, so yeah, it means a lot.
You could do it all again in just a couple of hours' time, but from a very, very different position.
Yeah, from 10, so need to get stuck in.
Well done there, Dan. Let's grab Ollie. Now, that was let's have a handshake between these two. Ollie, that was pretty remarkable. That's the first time we've seen somebody get a jump on Dan.
Yeah, I thought I kind of had him there. Here at Brands, should have been right for defend. I thought he was on my left-hand side going into clearways. I thought I'll open it up a little bit, get a bit of a run onto the start line, so he didn't have an attack into paddock, and he was already on the left. He was already on my right-hand side. And what's that? Too late. Couldn't shut.
Not much you can do at that point, though, is there?
No.
Once he's got the inside line.
Yeah, once the horse is bolted. So yeah, no. So just tried to stay on his bumper really for as long as I could, but it's quite intense being only a few inches from someone around here, and just made a few little mistakes. He just opened the door slightly, and yeah, so he took the win. Yeah,
that equals your best that you got at Knock Hill there, and the second race at Knock Hill, the DNF. So it's nice to get back out on track and get another podium.
Yep, good to be back on the podium. Definitely points needed. Good for Lewis as well to get third, so it's also good for Lewis, but also good for our championship as well, taking points away from some other people. So yeah, hopefully get the same start again in race 2 and see what happens.
And what is the car like? I know you've made the change, so what's the car like?
Yeah, I love it. It's just much more comfortable place to be. I'm more confident in it, so lets me go push harder. So yeah, it's great. Team Pyro done a great job.
Great stuff. Go and get your trophy. Well done. Thanks, Ollie. Lewis. Well done. That is a vast improvement from your 11th DNF and an 8th.
Yeah, big improvements. I can't thank the guys at Essex and Kent enough. They've stripped the car down. They've built it back together. And yeah, it's.
Well, apologies, we've lost signal down in the pit lane there with Bryn and Lewis Kent. We'll try very much to get back in touch with him if we can, but in the meantime we will have a look at the highlights of a dramatic opening race of the day. Wow. Bend and trying desperately to hang on. There was drama behind those. Andreas Beckman and Lewis Kent came together down at Graham Hill Bend, possibly damaging Beckman's car. This was the save of the day for the Swedish driver, though, after contact with Josh Price nearly took him and half the field out of the race. Cracking save from him, but Howard Fuller sadly got tangled up in the aftermath and was spun off onto the grass. For him, it would be a lowly 10th place finish. Dan Lloyd eventually prized the door open to find a way back ahead of Ollie Taylor, but it was a tough job then to try and pull away. Alex Morgan had mechanical dramas, whilst Howard Fuller had track limits dramas, running wide up towards clearways. A titanic scrap between Stuart Lyons, Finlay Crocker and Andreas Beckman ensued through the midfield, with Stuart and Finlay at one point both getting through in one fell swoop. West Coast Racing were nervously watching on, hoping that their drivers could keep it clean to the rest of the race, and Finlay Crocker allowed Andreas Beckman through with that moment. Dan Lloyd, though, took his 5th win from 5 races to extend his championship lead, whilst Ollie Taylor's 2nd place moves him back into 2nd place. Well, the drivers then are heading out onto the podium, and Scott Woodwist there from the VRSCC ready to do the honours. Gemma Ratzing as well from TCR UK, I can see in the background, ready to usher the drivers out onto the podium, and there will be some very, very lively celebrations, I would imagine, down below, particularly from Ollie Taylor's Pyro Motorsport squad and the Essex and Kent Motorsport squad of Lewis Kent. Dan Lloyd is well used to winning and well used to these good results. but for the other two on the podium, this was far from a foregone conclusion that they'd be up there. It's really nice to see their performance improving as the year goes on. There is Lewis Kent. He really is a youngster, isn't he? But you would not believe it when you see the consistency of his pace in that race, and that's what really bodes well for race 2 later on. Out comes Ollie Taylor. Second place finish for him. If anything, gets an even bigger cheer from the crowd down below. But finally, Dan Lloyd with his 5th winner's trophy of the season. A phenomenal drive from Dan. He really had to work for it, but it was well worth the effort. He extends his championship lead now. Can he be caught? Well, we'll find out a little bit later on. Remember, we have race 2 coming up later on this afternoon. That will be a reversed grid. Dan will have to come from 10th on the grid, and if the first few laps of this first race of the day are anything to go by, he is not going to have it easy at all. So 3 very happy drivers up on the podium. We'll see them all again in race 2 later on. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you back this afternoon. Everybody, round number 9 of the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship is about to get underway, and this is always a highlight of the weekend because it's the reversed grid race. We've had the top, I think I'm right in saying, 2, 4, 6, 8 cars reversed from the results from race 2, meaning that Carl Garnett and Johnny Greensmith line up on the front row together ahead of Steve Robertson, Simon